a storm coming, the likes of which you have never seen, and not a one of you is prepared for it.
I'm sorry, I forgot my line again. One sec, I gotta look it back up. Hold on. In a survival situation, if you can't get dry and stay dry, your body starts to shut down, infection can set in faster, and your tools and equipment can degrade significantly quicker as well. So today we have Mitch from Agonic, a former SERE instructor, back on the channel to teach you guys and us how to survive and sleep when it is pouring down rain out in the woods.
So when we're looking at jungle environments or moist environments that have a lot of humidity, a lot of rainfall, things of that nature, you have to build your shelters differently. You can usually tell by the ground. If you look at the ground, you have a bunch of dense vegetation. It's usually crawling continuously with bugs and insects and everything else like that. And it's absolutely saturated and just soaked. The idea is to be away from that. So just like in other shelters, we need to get us up off the ground, but now it's not as an insulation principle, it's to protect us from the environment that is living underneath you. So we're gonna build our shelters a little bit differently, have them elevated off the ground in order to keep that separation. It also allows us to keep all of our gear and equipment off the ground, which is gonna help it stay cleaner and more effective for a longer period of time. To get it up off the ground also means that we don't necessarily need to have flat, level ground for our shelter location. We can actually use things on a slope side, and we're building our shelter, which means we get to say what level is. So it gives a little bit more freedom when we're dealing with building elevated platforms for your shelter. For those platforms, what we're looking for is good, sturdy locations and natural materials. You can do it with as much man-made equipment as you want, or you can go as natural as you need to. Whether it's using natural withes and trees and branches in order to prop up all of your poles and ridge lines and everything else like that, or using cordage in order to lash up some of these poles. The idea is that you just get it to a designated height and it stays there locked into place. It's just like building a foundation for a house. The more time and energy and effort that you spend on setting the foundation of your structure into place, the more solid and capable that house or that shelter and structure is going to be. As far as size, it depends on you and your gear. I want a shelter site that's going to be able to protect me and my equipment. That's all I really need to deal with. Now, if I have my family out here, I'm looking to do either multiple shelters to protect every individual person and their individual equipment, or we're gonna build like the Swiss Family Robinson type thing out here and have a cabana in the trees just built up and have like a little hut where all of us are gonna have a communal area in order to get up out of the elements and in a focalized, controlled location. Lots of benefits and issues with both of them. You might not have the space or the resources to build a massive shelter. You might only be able to build a whole bunch of little individual ones. So it really becomes a matter of improvisation and analyzing the resources that you have available to you, both natural and man-made, and just problem solve as you see fit in that situation, in that environment. So there's really no like, this is the thing that you have to do. It's like, just make it happen. This is what you have, do what you need to do.
I have not caught a thing all day. It's probably my gear ratio, but we'll worry about that later. Guys, if you're out in the woods and you're concerned or considering eating, which is nice to do when you are burning calories, make sure you're putting extra calories in, you're gonna wanna go check out My Patriot Supply. Now, My Patriot Supply is one of our favorite sponsors because they're a brand that we actually have personally invested in before and during DC. If you guys are wanting to make sure that you have food on standby for camping for fun with your family or a really bad scenario that may happen in life, there is a link in the description that will also show the discount that they have going on. It is a special discount at this time. Save some money, go get a couple months worth of food that can last up to 25 years on a shelf ready to roll, and that way you're not stranded without extra calories when you really need it. Drew, you wanna take 100 Concepts?
Oh, I'm done.
All right, that's okay. If you guys are out in the woods and you're wanting to reduce your own signature, you should go check out 100 Concepts. They do a phenomenal job at making good products that will reduce your signature. So from hex caps, which are anti-reflective devices on the front of your optics or in front of your flashlight, or you're wanting to reduce the color of your backpack, you want to break up that outline, go buy some pack scrim or throw some on your helmet. We have a link in the description for 100 Concepts as well. Next we have Steel Industries. Drew, how about Steel? What do you think? All right, never mind, coming back over. He's getting a little rest. Steel Industries makes some of the best products in the market. Now, here's a cool thing about them. They're not just a retailer, they actually make night vision. Again, they're not just buying a product from someone else. They know how those systems work, which means that if you go to their customer service team, they're able to answer more of those detailed questions because they actually know how those parts go together. Those guys are really good shooters, solid people, great customer service, and they also do a phenomenal job at helping you handpick the tube specs that you want and shipping that out without an extra charge. Now, let's get back to sleeping in the rain.
What we're doing to secure the log if we have cordage is called a square lashing. It can be used for all sorts of things. Back in the mountaineering days, this is also how they would make improvised pack frames for all their gear to support weight and everything else. It just allows you to attach two poles or long pole-like items at 90 degrees, and they will actually hold with rigidity to it. It starts off with a fixed loop. You run it around one of the skinnier ones to maximize the use of your cordage. Feed your line through the fixed loop, and then make sure it bites down on itself like that so that it's going to actually cinch down. I like to have it up top so I can see it.
So you're trying to make a 90-degree angle off of that loop?
I'm trying to make a 90-degree angle off of this tree.
Okay.
So the square lash is, in essence, I'm creating a rectangle, technically, math nerds, off of the tree with rope. So my wraps go around the top, around the pole up top, and then should come out on top on the other side as well. Once it's around on the top, I'm gonna go over this next pole to the bottom, and then it comes out and around the bottom again on that other pole. And you repeat the process as you're going through. You can also do it with nylon webbing. It also works really well to do this. It all just depends on how much weight you need to sustain. But from here, since I ran out of line, I can take more and extend it with a square knot, right over left, left over right, and then just keep going the process over and over. Yeah, there it is. And over. I like to keep it as clean and tight as possible, so I want my lines touching but not overlapping. Again, it's just using the resources wisely. I'm not losing length in cordage, and it allows me to keep everything nice and tight and organized, and it just looks better. So once we get 3 wraps, I should be able to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So those are my wraps. Now I'm going to cinch all of the slack that's between the 4 corners of my square lashing out by starting to do my fraps. The fraps are just going in between the 2 poles, like so, and cinching it up. And I also want to have 3 and 3. Right now I have 2 and 2, and I ran out of cordage again, so we're gonna have to add more to it. And then we'll fix it off using a clove hitch, whatever kind of knot. It doesn't really matter which one. You just don't want the tension to be lost on this and to be secure when everything is kind of getting rocking and rolling. So that's what we're looking at for our square lash. 3 wraps on all 4 sides, 3 fraps, top and bottom, and then secure everything else. It's nice having a friend support the weight, and then you can actually crank your whole body weight into it. You can press the knee into there if you really need to get into it, but I want it music tight. All right, so once we're there, we're gonna do a clove hitch. I'm gonna do it on this side. Actually, I can just bring it over here. Doesn't matter, I've got enough cordage. But I've got 3 fraps with my 3 wraps, and then to secure it, I need to go beyond, under, around, and then underneath the line in the same direction that I'm pulling. Now, a directional clove, I can keep the tension here by pulling down tight and keep it going in the same direction. I can pinch it off, wrap the line around again, and feed the excess through. The best way to know if you did a clove hitch correctly is it'll create an X where the line is going into the middle and also out of the middle as well. If you're not super satisfied with that, or you want to like take care of all of your excess, you can throw as many extra hitches in there to lock it into place. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to change it too much, but it's just a good way of storing everything and like, okay, I guarantee this is not going to freaking move for any reason. And it also just gets it off the ground. You're not going to accidentally step on it, trip on it, or anything else like that. But now that, it'll have a little bit of a settling period, but it's going to be strong enough to support body weight and everything else like that that's going to be on it.
Nice.
The other big thing about why we wanted to get it off the ground is bugs. We don't want them to join us as we're sleeping. So how do you prevent insects from getting into your shelter while you're sleeping, especially when it's wide open like this? You might not have a bug net. If I am worried about flying bugs like mosquitoes, gnats, all that other sort of stuff, I absolutely want a bug net. I'm putting walls on this thing with extra ponchos. I'm building it up enough so that nothing is going to come inside with me. But I also don't want the creepy crawlies to find their way up the support structure and then into my shelter. So, big problems out here, creepy crawlies on the ground. Insects can sense the moisture in the air. If all of a sudden there is something that zaps the moisture away, they will leave it alone. White ash is really good at absorbing moisture. So if you have your entire shelter site set up and like blocked off and ready to go, you can collect a lot of the white ash from a fire that's been going for a long time, and you can create a perimeter wall around your shelter, and the bugs will not cross that line because the ash will start absorbing the moisture that's inside of their body, and they just, look at this little dude smelling it right now. He's like, I don't know if I want this.
Let's see what he does.
Is he crossing it?
He's finding a way around.
He's gonna go around. He's not gonna continue over that thing.
Dude, you couldn't have planned that better. All that, he's like, I'm just gonna go for it.
He's smelling other stuff, but he's hating it. Just notice how he's moving faster? That's the whole reason. Yeah, it gets the majority of it. The more ash you have, obviously, you guys are seeing the better. Yes, he's brave enough to go a little bit of the distance, but if I do like a foot barrier of this thing all the way around all the posts of the shelter, I'm not gonna get a single ant that's gonna crawl off the ground and in. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna get ants. You might have not seen that the ants can live in trees too. That's why it's important to observe your surroundings, maintain situational awareness, and make sure that you're building in a correct location that they're not already at. It doesn't help you if you're building your home inside of somebody else's house. But yeah, that's one way in order to keep the critters off of you. Other ways is how you're dressed, your clothing, what you treat it with, and everything else like that. So ticks were really bad this time of year at where we were doing training. Couple ways in order to prevent ticks from biting you. Pants tucked into the boots or into your socks so that the ticks have a hard time going around and in and then back up your legs. The other part is like your shirts, tucking them in. They can't go up your shirt if it's in your pants. So you'll see it collect on you. It's easier to pick them off and get rid of them. The arms, I don't really worry too much about my arms being exposed in an environment like this because I can see it, I can feel it more, and I can regularly like wash and wipe my arms off, right? Now I'm off the ground. Still need to protect myself from the rest of the environmental hazards. Ideally, you should have already taken into consideration the opening and the direction of the prevailing winds inside of the area to see which direction that you want the wind to be coming towards you. You never want to go directly into the wind because then you're creating wind tunnel for yourself, and that's jacked up unless you really want the wind to help cool you down on a nice hot day like this. The problem with it is when it starts raining and the wind is going with the rain directly into your shelter, and now it's not keeping you dry, it's soaking you in the rain. So you still want to follow that same principle of have the main openings for your shelter being 90 degrees to the wind. That way it creates like a little vortex and then comes out It doesn't go straight through like a wind tunnel, and it doesn't hit it like a rock in a river and create its own eddy type effect and then blows it back into your shelter and fills the whole thing up. So still have your opening 90 degrees to the wind, and you can build up your rain cover however it's going to suit you the best. Right here we could do a crazy weird bastardization of like a Ranger Diamond setup, and it'll work just fine. You can also do like an A-frame. You can incorporate framework into it if you want to. We could add a ridge pole, all sorts of different stuff. It's up to how much time, energy, and effort you want to put into it in order to make that. So I'm gonna do, or show you guys like another way to kind of combine the Ranger Diamond concept with an A-frame principle, all right? So we still have our 4 corners that have ponchos, kind of like what we did earlier in the winter. But this time, I'm going to attach the 2 corners to these 2 trees because it just works out better for here. And then the center of those, there's another eyelet just like this one, I'm going to attach to that one tree. I'm still going to use those other corners, but it allows me to pin them down at the base of the structure. So where my head's going to be is actually going to be the driest point, and all the rain will fall down this side, that side, and then collect on either end over there, which I could also utilize to collect water. Same thing with the height. You just want it to be tall enough so that you can sit up inside of the shelter. The higher you keep it off of your body,
The cooler you'll be.
correct, because it's going to allow air to flow through it more. If you're worried about getting wet, you want it sunk down even tighter, at least on the sides, so that it really traps everything in and prevents all that water from coming out. Let's get one more piece of cordage. So make sure we can sit up inside. I don't necessarily have to be standing inside of the shelter, but I want to be able to sit up in it comfortably. So I'd want it tied off of right about there.
Cool.
You guys are seeing how it's dipping a whole bunch. We'll take care of that here in a bit. But it is something just to be mindful of in order to try to get rid of as we are kind of continuing on. Okay. This way is going to probably be the fastest way for us to get it up. So let's get some more 550 cord. We'll cinch off the hood. We'll get that guy tied up. I'm going to wrap them around these logs in order to take out the rest of the slack that we have inside of here. If we wanted to, we can make it wider and find like stakes or other branches of trees like this guy here. I can wrap it around him and pull it out that way. That'll work. Like, there are all sorts of different options that we can do with this thing. You can even tie it to that vine that's right behind your head. You really only need safety on knots that have a quick release. This one doesn't have a quick release, so it's just going to cinch down on itself more with the girth hitch there.
So you're saying to do it right?
You did it away, and it works.
You did it away.
That's it, man. There's so many ways of doing it. Not one is right or wrong. It's just, does it work? If it works, it works.
And it's okay for there to be a little bit of slack in here, because this could collect water and you could see where it's naturally running off at and just put something underneath it.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. The other nice thing about like this poncho that you have, Josh, is the cordage on the inside. Now you have stuff to like hang your headlamp and everything else like that when you're inside, and it's up out of your way, and you can have like a little reading lamp if you got study time. You can practice your map work, figure out where you need to go next, all that sort of stuff, and it just frees up your hands, takes the pressure off your head. Really just gives you time to decompress and think about what needs to be done next. Sweet. So it's not just yourself that you need to think about protecting from the environment, but all of your equipment, right? This is a life send to get any of this stuff done. All of your gear and equipment is vital to maintain in order to make sure that you are functional and capable of doing things quickly. It is so much harder when your tools are broken or don't work to do any of this shit. And you don't get to go to Walmart and buy another one. Amazon does not send drone deliveries out to these places. So it's important to know how to care for all of the stuff that you have in order to lengthen the lifespan of that gear, because everything breaks eventually. It's just a matter of fact. Things that break it even faster: friction, wear, tear, abuse, and moisture are the big killers for pretty much everything. I don't want to necessarily just leave my gear on the ground, because it's going to get all of the canvas and the materials just coated with dirt. That's the same reason why I don't like putting my knees in the dirt. because it's going to rub all those micro rocks into the fibers of the gear, and eventually it wears it out, and then you get holes that are forming, and it's preventing it from doing its job, which is to protect what's inside. So I need to try to keep it up off the ground. That's why I either attach my pack to a tree, keep it up off the ground, or I just make sure my shelter is big enough that I can have my gear and equipment contained inside of that shelter with me. Moisture, especially where we are, is just in the air. I don't get to choose that. It's really hard to keep my tools available, accessible, and usable, and out of that moisture to prevent things like rust, especially like multi-tools. You guys can already see, like, this guy's already got some rust on the tweezers and everything else. This is where dirt actually helps. You can get to what they call like loamy soil, which is just like a really fine dirt. It usually forms right next to like creek beds. You just dig down a little bit. It's kind of sandy in principle, but when you get it on that rust, you just rub into it like a Brillo pad. Then you can grab some green vegetation in order to clean it up, and it'll start taking all that rust away. If you get dirt like inside of the joints, you can just use the green vegetation and start working it, kind of like a Q-tip, and it'll start rubbing all of it away as well. In wet, moist environments like this, it's also smart to lubricate all of your moving tools. Leatherman's being a big one. Also, if you have to have a firearm with you, or you happen to have one maintaining in this, is really good to have really awesome lubricants available, but it also changes on the environment. So like a dry environment, I want to try to use a dry lubricant. What happens to a wet surface in the sand?
It all sticks.
Exactly. So if I'm using a wet lubricant and I'm in a desert environment, a really dry place, all the dust and debris is going to stick to that wet lubricant, and now it's causing more abrasion. It's going to break down faster. In a wet environment, what happens to dry things? It gets soaked, sticks, right? Yeah. It's reversed. If it's dry, use dry lubricant. If it's wet out, use wet lubricant. Not everybody walks around with a thing of Lucas oil in order to like hinge up all their multi-tools and everything else like that out here. There are other types of lubricant that are naturally occurring that you can also use for things like this, like oil. Where are some places that we can find oil?
Animals.
Yeah, animals are a huge one. If we render down the fat down, it'll separate between tallow and fatty oils. Kind of like in the Book of Eli where he's using the cat and everything. Same thing, you can use that in order to like seriously lube up your tools and protect it from the moisture, and it will resist the rust from forming on your tools in this environment. The tallow is also really good for skincare. So lots of cool things just for taking care of your gear and equipment. Now, if my gear gets wet, I need it to get dry. The idea out here is if it's wet, try to stay dry. If it's dry out and hot, I'm gonna try to stay wet. It's kind of reverse thinking when you're looking at it, because in a hot, dry environment, the moisture is going to allow me to utilize a swamp cooling concept in order to use the wind to cool my body off more. In a humid environment, I need to try to stay dry, because I guarantee after about a day or two, you will probably end up with like little cuts, nicks, scrapes, blisters, or anything else like that on your hands and feet in an environment like this. And they're super prone to infection. Bacteria thrives in moist environments. If you allow that open inside of an environment like this over a prolonged period of time, or even just like your pits and everything else like that, you're gonna have a huge problem with chafing. MRSA can start showing up. If you guys haven't seen MRSA, look it up. It's actually really nasty. And it's really hard to get rid of MRSA. It spreads like wildfire. So it's good to try to stay as dry as humanly possible. And that also gets into your clothing choice, right? Like, what are you going to wear when you're out there? Do I want to wear waterproof gear in the rain?
Depends on how hot it is.
Okay, why?
Well, if it's hot, you're just having to sweat. You're just using more sweat, more water, more hydration.
And you're already wet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why do I want to get wet with my own wetness when there's already wetness outside that's going to get me wet too?
That's a lot of wetness.
Yeah.
It's a lot of wet, right? So sometimes it's better to just accept the fact that you're going to be wet and intentionally wear things that are going to dry off quickly. That's why we made the pants the way we did. We want it to dry quickly. I don't care if I get wet. I'm okay with that. In fact, if I'm working in an environment like this, I would rather be wet while I'm working, because it allows me to move and cool down. but I do want to be able to dry very effectively so that I reduce the chafing and I reduce the amount of infection or the chances of infection that I could be sustaining out here for that.
So preferably not cotton.
Preferably in an environment like this, cotton would be a no-go. Also, oddly enough, wool is a great thing. Even though it retains moisture, it's antimicrobial, so it doesn't allow bacteria to form very well, which also means that it's not going to stink, and it pulls the moisture away from the body so that it doesn't allow you to get things like immersion foot, which there's a lot of guys that haven't switched over to wool socks or merino wool socks yet. I don't know what they're thinking wearing cotton out here for socks. It's dumb. You will lose the soles of your feet. Trench foot, immersion foot, it's absolutely disgusting. The bottom of your feet slough completely off.
Oh, God. Thanks.
So it's one of those things like, if you need to walk around and do things, you need to be able to make sure that your feet are sustained. You guys are wearing cool Solomons like all the cool guys, right?
Yeah.
They got Gore-Tex in it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. What does Gore-Tex do?
Well, it locks moisture one direction or both directions.
Maybe same.
Yeah.
So if your feet are sweating, the side of the Gore-Tex is literally just trapping in all your sweat with your feet. If you weren't wearing wool socks, your feet would be swimming right now. And if you couldn't change your socks on a regular basis, the bottoms of it literally start turning into like pruny raisins when you're in the bathtub for far too long. And if you leave it too long, it'll actually numb the nerves to the point when you take the sock off. There's been cases in like World War I and everything else where people would take the socks off and the bottom of their feet just go with the sock. And it's just meat underneath. It's really, really painful and not fun because you can't walk anymore, which means you can't do anything. So taking care of yourself maintains your health, maintains your hygiene, and allows you to function and keep doing everything. So the big thing, guys, when you're looking for like wet weather conditions and stuff like that is to get dry, stay dry. You really just want to get out of the elements as soon as possible and just hunker down, hang out, kill the boredom, and then you can go out and get back to work when weather's kind of staff. Just wade through the storm.
Stay dry.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Classes like this, Mitch does much broader classes like this. We actually host them out on some of our property in Kentucky. You can sign up for those at Agonic. That being said, all of our Patreon supporters, thanks a ton. You guys keep us going. If you're not in the Patreon crew, $5 a month gets you early access to all this stuff and first access to us because our DMs and our emails are overflowing and we have to pick and choose who we respond to. So that being said, get out there. Just because you watch the video doesn't mean you know it. Get hands-on, get experience, keep the ticks off of you, and stay dry.
Oh, I could totally sleep here.
Oh,
Did you put that on me?
No,
I didn't. Dude,
nature did it.
he was like, I could sleep here too.